Welcome to PM Ready, your guide to becoming PMP certified. This is the lesson on executing, monitoring, and controlling resources. Part 3. The Manage Team Process. This involves tracking team member performance, providing team members with appropriate feedback, resolving issues within the team, and managing any changes to the team that need to be made in order to maximize performance. To do this, you'll need to employ both management and leadership skills, and you'll need to learn how to adjust your style in order to meet the needs of individual team members in order to maximize team performance. W. Edwards Deming had some strong opinions when it comes to team member performance. He said the system that people work in and the interaction with people may account for 90 or 95% of performance. I should estimate that in my experience, most troubles and most possibilities for improvement add up to the proportions something like this. 94% belongs to the system, responsibility of management, 6% special. Meaning that he felt that about 94% of the performance issues and opportunities were a result of the system people worked in, and that the system was the responsibility of management to improve, not individual team members, and that it is inappropriate and misguided for us to be focusing exclusively on individual team performance when most of our opportunities for improvement come from management's ability to evaluate, analyze, and improve the system in which people work. Not only did Deming feel that management is responsible for over 90% of a team's performance, also Jeff Sutherland, one of the co-creators of Scrum, also felt that team performance could be improved as much as 4-fold by having management, in this case project managers, focus on team improvement, specifically on removing impediments to the productivity of the team. The focus here being on team performance, not exclusively, but as something that has more opportunity than individual performance. As project managers, we should be looking at both individual and team performance, but we have a tendency to focus more on individual performance. So there's a need for us as part of management to take responsibility and recognize our own role in improving team-wide performance. Oftentimes, it's as simple as asking the team members what could be done, what you could do as a project manager or anyone else could do in the organization to improve the effectiveness of the team. They may be able to recognize specific roadblocks or processes that are getting in their way, and you as the project manager can take that list of impediments up to your management and get those impediments removed in order to maximize your team's performance. Other times, you may need to do more of a critical analysis, taking a look at the value chain and the processes, and using flow charts and so on to really analyze what it is the team does and how they do it and how they interact with other teams, and identify specific opportunities for improvement. Now for the inputs to the managed team process. The primary inputs are the team performance assessments, which come from your developed team process, and your work performance reports from the monitor and control project work process. You'll also use your resource management plan because this includes the rules and guidelines for how you're going to manage resources, including managing your team, project team assignments that identify who's on the team and what their roles and responsibilities are, your team charter, which includes the rules and guidelines for how decisions will be made and conflicts resolved and meetings managed, the issue log from which you can draw issues that have come up in managing the team, your lessons learned register that includes lessons learned from previous phases of the project about how best to manage your team, as well as some enterprise environmental factors and organizational process assets. The primary enterprise environmental factor is your HR management policies, including all those policies and guidelines for how you should be managing your team. You'll want to be careful to be aligned with these. And your organizational process assets include things that you can use for recognition and rewards, things like certificates of appreciation, which can go a long way, but should be directed more at the team than at individuals in order to foster teamwork, and can include other corporate perks. Be careful that these perks don't encourage the wrong sort of behavior, so it's best to apply them to the team as a whole rather than to individuals. And now we move on to the tools and techniques for the managed team process. The first is interpersonal and team skills, which is a very important skill to have when it comes to managing your team, particularly when it comes to conflict management. There can be all sorts of conflicts on your team because of differences of opinion, different work styles, different approaches to solving problems, and so on. But you have a team charter in place that has some guidelines for some of this conflict resolution, and it shouldn't start with the project manager, believe it or not. It should actually start with the individual team members, because they should take some responsibility for managing conflict. They can use the team charter as a guideline, but the first step is for them to see if they can work out their issues. If they can't, then you as a project manager need to get involved, and you should get involved early on if they can't resolve it. And it's best usually to do this in private, one-on-one with the people, to be direct with them, and to try to understand them and their needs and be collaborative with them in coming up with a solution for the conflict. Properly managed, conflicts can be a great benefit to the project team and to the project because it helps to bring out different perspectives that can help you to come up with better solutions to problems. The key is to make sure that team members can manage this conflict appropriately. As they and you get involved in conflict management, some factors that you need to take into consideration are the importance and intensity of the issue, the time pressure or urgency to resolve the issue, the relative power of the people involved in the disagreement or conflict, the importance of the relationship between them, and whether you're looking for a long-term or short-term solution. When resolving conflict, there are a number of different approaches that you can take, and some are better in some circumstances and others in other circumstances. The first is to withdraw or avoid. This is when you retreat or postpone dealing with an issue. This is often not the best response, but sometimes it can be, especially considering that in some cases you may have such a difference in balance of power of the people involved in the disagreement that withdrawing or avoiding is your best bet. Or you may be able to postpone it until you can get other factors or people involved. The next is to smooth or accommodate. This is when you are trying to reach an agreement. You try to understand each other, find some areas in which you agree, and concede where you can. If the relationship is important and the decision that you come to isn't that critical and the relationship is more important, then this might be your best approach. The next is to compromise or reconcile. You try to find some way in which you can come up with a compromise in which everyone gets a little bit of what they wanted. Sometimes, though, this is referred to as a lose-lose approach because nobody really gets everything that they wanted. Then you have force or direct as an approach. This, on the other hand, is more of a win-lose approach, in which you enforce a certain resolution without taking the time to try and compromise or reconcile or collaborate. This sounds like it might never be appropriate, but it actually is when you're in, for example, an emergency situation, and it's critical that this be resolved quickly, and you don't have the time to really explore your options. You just need to decide right away. And so you have to come in and intervene and take charge. The next is collaboration or problem solving. And this is usually the best approach if the problem is important and if you have the time and the parties are willing to collaborate on this. This will allow you to really explore all of the different viewpoints that you have and take a cooperative and collaborative approach, having open dialogue and seeking some consensus. This will allow you to improve the buy-in or commitment from all of those involved, and is more likely to result in a long-term win-win solution. Other interpersonal and team skills that will come into play as you manage the team include your decision-making skills, including your ability to negotiate and influence decision-making, your emotional intelligence, your ability to identify, assess, and manage your own emotions as well as others, and to use emotions to understand situations better. Your influencing skills, especially when you're in an environment where you have little or no direct authority over your team members, such as in a matrix environment or in a more traditional hierarchical organization. And leadership skills that will allow you to communicate the vision of what you're doing and inspire people to high performance. You also have your project management information system that can have tools in place to help you manage your team. In this section of the PMBOK guide, when it mentions decision-making, they're actually talking about something a little bit different than decision-making tools in other processes, because those involved voting or autocratic or multi-criteria decision-making tools. In this case, the decision-making is more focused on your ability to negotiate and influence the organization and the team. And some guidelines to help you here are that you should focus on the goal, try and follow a structured decision-making process, study all of the environmental factors around the issue, analyze all of the available information you've got, take specific steps to try and stimulate some team creativity to come up with different options, and also make sure that you account for different risks involved. And now a little bit more about emotional intelligence. According to Drs. Travis Bradbury and Gene Greaves, emotional intelligence is your ability to recognize and understand emotions in yourself and others, and your ability to use this awareness to manage your behavior and relationships. Emotional intelligence is something that was first popularized by Daniel Goleman in his book Emotional Intelligence, and then later extended and expanded upon in Travis Bradbury and Gene Greaves' book Emotional Intelligence 2.0, which provides some assessments and specific guidance on improving emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence has gained in popularity over the years because there's some evidence to suggest that not only is it more of a factor in success than IQ, but also that unlike IQ, emotional intelligence can be learned and improved. Some take issue with the idea of calling it an intelligence rather than a set of skills, but it still includes an interesting set of ideas that can be effectively applied in managing your team. In Emotional Intelligence 2.0, emotional intelligence is organized in this grid, which categorizes emotional intelligence across a couple of dimensions: personal competence and social competence. in which personal competence focuses more on you and your ability to be aware of your emotions and manage your behavior and tendencies. And it in turn is organized into self-awareness and self-management. Social competence is more about your ability to be aware of and manage emotions in your relationships with others. Your ability in social awareness to accurately pick up on the emotions of other people and understand what's going on with them. And your ability in relationship management to be aware of your emotions and other people's emotions and be able to manage those in order to improve your interactions. Although some people will argue whether emotional intelligence is a true intelligence versus a set of skills, and others will argue whether emotional intelligence really is its own thing or whether it's actually some combination of IQ and personality. It is a very interesting and useful way to look at how you manage your emotions, especially how you identify, assess, and manage your emotions in yourself and in others. These skills can be used to reduce tension and increase cooperation, as well as to anticipate how other people will act and react. It helps you to understand and acknowledge their concerns and help them to be more collaborative and participatory, and can be used to better follow up on their issues. Influencing skills include the ability to be persuasive, especially when working not only with team members, but other stakeholders that are somewhat part of your team or related to your team or influencing your project, people over which you don't have a lot of control. You need to be able to be persuasive, to clearly articulate the points and positions that you need to communicate, to be an active listener, especially being able to seek first to understand other people's positions and feelings before expressing your own, and helping them to understand your position. You also need to be good at gathering supporting information on the issues and developing and maintaining trust along the way. The last interpersonal and team skill that is mentioned is leadership, which is about being able to clearly articulate the vision, helping to inspire people to this vision and inspiring their best work, inspiring teams to work together toward this common vision, and also developing some situational leadership. Situational leadership is your ability to apply different types of leadership in different circumstances and for different people in order to best inspire people that have different approaches or are at different levels of maturity in their ability to work together as a team. As a project manager, you should be aware of and be able to apply different types of leadership style under different circumstances. You should select the style that is best based on the leadership of the team itself, how it's organized, the organization that you're in, and the environment in which your project team operates. The first leadership style is called laissez-faire, which you see more often used in terms of economics and governments. However, it means to take more of a hands-off approach, to give your team a lot more autonomy in deciding how things are done. This is often exemplified in self-organizing teams. Teams which decide for themselves how things should be done, or in some cases establish their own goals. A transactional leadership style is focused more on the work that needs to be done, the things that need to be accomplished, the processes that should be followed, the goals that you're after, and includes management by exception, in which you set forth some rules and guidelines and you manage to the exceptions rather than managing the processes. The transformational leadership style is focused more on the people and inspiring them and their creativity. The servant leader style is where the leader puts service to others first, and this becomes apparent and can generate a significant amount of loyalty as a result. The charismatic leadership style is exemplified by having high energy and being very enthusiastic and bold. And then interactional is a combination of other leadership styles, such as combining your servant leader and charismatic and transformational. You'll often see great leaders that have a combination of these different leadership styles all rolled into one. There aren't any real primary outputs to the managed team process, but there are some secondary ones, starting with change requests, which of course need to go through the Perform Integrated Change Control process, because you may find as you're managing the team that things happen, issues come up, personnel may need to be swapped out, and so on. So you may need to update your resource management plan or even your schedule and cost baselines, your project team assignments, your issue log, and lessons learned register as well. Perhaps even some updates to your enterprise environmental factors around resource availability in particular. Do you remember your inputs, tools and techniques, and outputs? The inputs are primarily your work performance reports and team performance assessments, also in combination with other inputs about who's who in your team assignments, your team charter that has some rules, as well as your resource management plan, and so on. Mostly it's about your tools and techniques, specifically around conflict management, decision making, your emotional intelligence, your ability to influence and lead the team. Plus, you may have some useful tools in your project management information system. No real primary outputs, but some change requests may be possible as things happen and you have to make changes to your project management plan, baselines, and update other documents. This is the end of part 3. PM Ready is a publication of PM Guaranteed and is based on the Project Management Institute's PMBOK guide.